Nice. I've just been told that we are already late in time. That's why I would like to continue. And our next speaker is always also someone who founded a startup to simplify processes. His aim is to shape the future of cities. I think the title of his talk already names the problem he wants to solve. More knowledge, information and intelligence, but the problem remains traffic. I'm very curious what he will tell us about possible smart city scenarios. Welcome, Gunnar Froh.
Thank you. Yeah, nice venue that you have here, very unexpected. Amazing to be outside and this sort of demonstration setup. Look, I brought three things today that I would like to share with you. The first is an idea, then an update about our company, and then an invitation. And before we go into that, I would like to kick it off with this a little video. Well, I hope you can see from down there, otherwise. Yes.
This car, that bus, those trains. We build big things and small things to solve big problems and small problems to make us more mobile. With a growing population, our solutions face new unforeseen challenges. Our roads are becoming gridlocked, our buildings are harder to reach, and our buses and trains are being overused every single day. That's why we use our experience to create technology that addresses these problems by connecting mobility at all levels. From sharing your ride with someone going in the same direction, to getting picked up by a shuttle service operating on your route, to booking a nearby car or scooter so you can arrive at your destination. We create the technology today that will keep mobility moving forward. Because we share tomorrow.
Could you see this a little bit? What's amazing about this video is that all these cities that you saw, all this material was shot in-house. We're a startup, 5 years old, headquartered here in Hafen City. Our technology gets used around the world now, more than 100 cities, about 60 plus B2B, B2G clients, startups, big corporates like Daimler, Volkswagen, Hyundai, governments. And a lot of the products that you see around cities in the world now, including also here in Hamburg, run under brands and then use our technology. The idea that I want to share on the surface is this simple one, that as mobility in cities is becoming more complex and more sophisticated, there's a value chain emerging of some people focusing primarily on hardware, on the vehicles, others on technology, on the software, that's us, including us, and then others on running those operations. And the update about our company, because our company really first landed in Hamburg in a way in 2014, 5 years ago, when we launched the first ride-sharing in Germany, in Hamburg and Berlin. This was me coming from working at Airbnb for a few years and sort of meeting some people in San Francisco, including the Lyft founders, and thinking this is the next thing. We need ride-sharing here as well. Fast forward 5 years later, we still don't really have ride-sharing here. Now I don't care anymore because we are licensing technology around the world. We don't run this stuff over here. But this is sort of the update about our company, what this company is today. We're now heading towards 200 people here. We have 7 products, 50 plus clients, 100 plus cities. 25 million revenue this year. It's becoming a serious business. It's growing really substantially, and it's only possible by basically focusing on this part of the value chain, building scalable technology here in Hamburg with people, like we heard in the previous talk, that are mainly not from Hamburg, surprisingly, just get relocated from all over the world. More than 30 nationalities. The vast majority of people in our team are from somewhere around the world, just looking for experts, bringing them here. Luckily, that's surprisingly easy, different from launching some services. Bringing qualified people here right now is very easy. But there's another idea that I want to also share with you before we come to this invitation, okay? And this idea is a bit more complex, and I think also more interesting, more long-term. And I hope you can see some of these pictures, but they're just to illustrate basically a point. This is a kind of typical scene of a city as we have known in Europe, at least so far. It's a very complex sort of ecosystem. You have different businesses there, there's housing on top, you have sort of some construction going on, there are bikes and cars. It's this whole sort of mess in a way, but also looks very familiar to us, and we could probably get a lot of the things that we need over here, including social interactions. And with technology moving into cities, they come across as something cute and funny in the beginning, like these little garbage robots in Berlin. We don't really care if now a robot picks up our trash. That's pretty convenient, pretty cute and smart. But where's this heading? And I've been reading a lot about this lately, and there's a book that I really can recommend if you're still into books, I don't know. Building and Dwelling by Richard Sennett. That's an LSE professor on urban development who also teaches in Harvard and MIT, Building and Dwelling. And so he's talking about smart cities of the future, and we should have this fundamental idea that I would like to also put in your head right now, that there is not one path towards an ever smarter smart city, one way of building this and evolving this. There are at least two very different ways, one of which Sennett calls a prescriptive smart city and then a coordinating smart city. And the prescriptive smart city is basically what comes out if you let big tech take over the evolution of mobility in cities and then how cities get built to become smarter over time. The ultimate smart city is something like this, Masdar in the United Arab Emirates, for example, something that's been planned from scratch and that gets controlled in a central command area somewhere. It's a frictionless city. And if you look at cities or, I don't know, evolution of tech from a philosophical perspective, there's a big criticism around making everything frictionless. The ever more frictionless product, the ever more frictionless city is also potentially making us ever dumber and in some ways unhappy. It's a centrally controlled city that tells everyone, in a perfect environment under this view, in the morning an algorithm anticipates what you would likely want to do in this day. They tell you, okay, walk 10 feet to the edge of your property. A car comes around automatically, they get in, you get on the optimal route to work. This is a perfect smart city according to prescriptive smart cities. What's the problem with that? How do you get to work in the mornings? Do you choose what's optimal for the city according to an algorithm? Okay, the way I get to work right now, in the mornings, I take my son down, his ski does right next to us in Hafen City. The optimal way for the city would probably be for us to take a Moja right now. We don't do that because A, we like to take the route that we like to take, go by the harbor, it's beautiful, we want to see these ships, it's awesome, and B, we want the privacy in the morning because we sing songs. My son is 3 years old and we sing songs every morning in the car. And that's not rational, but that's what we want to do. We are clashing in some ways. And on the way, we are standing in the traffic jam when it comes to around Fish Market with a lot of other people that are behaving in a suboptimal way, but that's what we choose to do. Prescriptive smart city, telling everyone exactly what to do, controlling in a central way, who to meet along the way, kind of anticipating your every need, not leading to clashes, not leading to new ideas or thinking. The coordinating smart city, on the other hand, is just providing that information. It's telling you, here are your options, now you choose what you want to do. Where prescriptive smart cities lead is something like this. That's Le Corbusier, that's kind of architect, early 20th century, how he envisioned Berlin should be like. That's an optimal city according to 1920s, but that's also what Masdar or other smart cities in Korea look like today. And this is how the tech giants choose to build their own environment today. This is the Googleplex, the big Google office in New York City, and this described as an example here in this book as a sort of ghetto that they are creating for themselves. A kind of environment that is perfectly orchestrated. If you go through an Google office now, at first you think it's kind of funny and funky, they use different colors, but in the end of the day, there are no clashes there. There is no conflict, there is no sort of coincidence encounter in that. The way they interact with their environment is very much like gated communities in a way. You get food in there, you get your gym, you get everything. You move inside to deliver your work, and then the city around you is a distraction. And I think that when we shape cities a lot through technology, it's not only like make it ever more frictionless to basically let UX researcher determine what way this should go, and then for cities to just take that as granted as the technological evolution, but there's a political and a philosophical debate to how to create cities. And in some ways, maybe it's true that we don't just want ever more frictionless. Maybe we have other aspirations as well for how we enjoy our cities. If you leave the evolution of cities and mobility as a part of that to big tech, well, basically you're in bad hands. Look at what happened to Facebook, whose philosophy is basically just make it ever less frictionless. If we control all the data, the CEO of Facebook thinks that's if you don't have anything to hide, that's not a problem. That's a very shallow sort of philosophical upbringing. And where that led was basically we just optimized the heck out of everything to make it more frictionless, and 8 years later, oh fuck, we screw up that election. Because stuff that got clicked on didn't get reflected on and just propagated. And so the idea, we build technology, we build software, and that's cool, and that's what we do 90% of the day. But we also, now that we begin to have more leverage, more impact around the world, and a lot of companies using our technology, we would like to talk about these aspects as well. What is the kind of way we want to deploy this? And so we're basically saying, and now we come to the invitation, we're basically saying that we're creating a tech platform on the one hand, that's just software that people can license, and then an idea platform on the other hand. And the way that idea platform works is through physical interactions, through a meetup series that we're hosting, that has traditionally been always here in Hamburg every few months, and it's now going around the world. It's in London and Kensington Palace in a few weeks, and then it's going to San Francisco, and then to Frankfurt IAA, and then coming back here in the fall. And that's the invitation. Don't ask you to come to London, but back here in the fall, we're hosting in Hafen City the Wunder Mobility Summit in November. And it's a by invitation event, but you can sort of register your interest on the website. It's going to be very crazy. It will be opened by our dear mayor here in the morning, and then we have the CEO of Waymo. We have a lot of crazy people from mobility. There will be the urban air taxi landing of one of these players in front of it. And for like a day and a half, we will have really challenging discussions around what's the latest in technology, but also how should it get applied. And as a company, we would like to build technology, but also drive ideas forward. And I think that we need this in Hamburg a lot more. We need tech also in Hamburg, and therefore it's great that these guys put on this event. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, for sharing. I find it wonderful that we are here outside in the middle of Hamburg. I think there is not a better place where you could have talked about the future of cities, right?
Thank you.
Are there other questions from your side? What do you want to ask to people working for Wunder Mobility, creating the future of cities by platforms, idea platforms, also tech platforms? I really cannot believe how passive you are. Aren't there any questions down there? Come on, don't be so shy. Just come up here. I can also come down. I just have to be careful with the technique all the time. But if there are no questions, it's once more my turn. You've been talking about companies and how they influence by, for example, building platforms, the future of traffic in cities. What do you think could maybe be the part of the cities? What should they do? What is your advice? Is there something which should happen, which doesn't, or what's your opinion about it?
The fundamental idea when it comes to the role of cities in mobility is that these new mobility services that we see around here are, if they become bigger, basically public transportation. When a Moja bus shared with other people is basically just like the big old bus, only it's not going around in circles. It's smaller and routed dynamically. Car sharing, bike sharing, shuttle services, this is all public transport. So there's a lot of private initiative in that right now. But so far, the political consensus has been that public transportation is provided by cities. And what is going to happen in the next few years is basically a sort of privatization of public transportation. And that maybe has some advantages. For sure, a lot of ideas are tried out. But as these services become bigger, the cities are going to have to ask themselves, are we also getting into this business now? Because our idea right now is to basically make public transit even stronger, maybe even for free in some cases, and not to privatize it. So the first step that cities need to take while all of this is happening is make sure they have transparency. So one of our software products is Wunder City, and that's basically licensed to cities so that they mandate all operators in their area to send data to them, to their API, in a live way, so that they can answer all sorts of questions about these new mobility services. How do scooters, Moja shuttles, actually get used in real time? And are they using those scooters to go to the train, or are they riding in parallel to the train or whatnot? Cities need to first get transparency, understand what's going on, and then a second step, probably launch their own services in that. Otherwise, you have a kind of privatization of public transit, which some people might want, but the consensus so far was we didn't want, and maybe there should be a debate about that.
I think it got quite clear why cities should definitely be involved in the whole discussion. Does it mean that you also invite cities for your summit? So
yeah, for sure.
You bring everyone together, not only companies.
Yeah, Hamburg Mayor is opening this, and then there are some cities now have chief digital officers or something like this. From Barcelona, from cities in the US, they are also coming to this event in November in Hafen City.
In Hamburg.
Yeah.
And sitting together, discussing about the single cities, discussing about
the future of cities when it comes to mobility at the Wunder Mobility Summit, right?
Is there any city which is like an example which you like and which other cities maybe should look at and try to follow them?
In the past, Copenhagen has always been cited as an example because they have more share of bikes basically, but Hamburg is quickly evolving towards being that role model actually. We have a big congress, ITS 2021, coming to Hamburg, which is sort of going around the world every 2 years and always hosted by a different city on the future of cities. And in that context, Hamburg is launching a lot of pilot projects and experimenting a lot and all that. And definitely Hamburg can have this position. We would have to change the role of bikes in the city a lot, and we would have to basically make sure we collect a lot of data and have a lot of learnings until then.
When I'm interested in a topic, apart from joining your summit, what can I do to influence the whole discussion, or what we all can do? Is there anything?
When you talk about Hamburg specifically, the big red party in Hamburg, I believe, is currently polling on whether mobility should be a main topic for the upcoming election, Bürgerschaftswahl next spring. And I think it very well might be, and it should be, and I think that we're leaving a lot on the table. Mobility in Hamburg is not really like devastatingly bad, but it could be a lot better. The role of bikes is very bad. We have pollution levels that courts need to force the city to finally act upon it. Also because, of course, industry has betrayed us about what the emissions of these cars really are. There are things like civil initiatives around biking, for example, in Hamburg that, I mean, if there are some signals in the coming months that this is a topic, then it will become a Bürgerschaftswahl topic, and then the city will probably move ahead aggressively towards this 2021 summit. And it doesn't have to be Copenhagen for the next 10 years. It can be Hamburg, basically showcasing a lot of stuff. We have a great existing infrastructure. We have the resources to do it. Very, very progressive population in the city. So sending some signals when you talk to politicians now about, yeah, we want to change it, we want more. We want to be able to bike on a single bike path when we go home from work and downtown to wherever in the city. That's not a huge ask.
We were talking about Barcelona, about Copenhagen, about Hamburg. So you're basically focusing on European cities, is that right? Because there are other huger cities who have completely different problems, right? Can we also learn from them?
Right.
Or?
It's not totally right. We used to be, for 1 year in our history, we were entirely focused on Manila. And we ended up in Manila because it's supposed to be the worst city in the world for traffic, according to The Economist and whatnot. The average commute time in Manila is 4 hours per day. 2 hours there, 2 hours back. It's crazy. They have dormitories next to offices because people who live in the same city can't go back home every night. It's just totally messed up. And we developed some of our products over there. We created carpooling solutions that were liquid, where people, kind of like a Uber meets BlaBlaCar, an instantly booked carpooling very, very cheap. We've built that over there, and that technology is now being used for our shuttle product, for example. But we can definitely learn from other cities, and our team, luckily, is like from around the world. It's super global, and our client base is also entirely global. Clients signed this week are from Helsinki, New York, and the third one I forgot, but it's everywhere the whole time. Saudi Arabia, US, everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you so much for these really interesting insights. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here on this beautiful stage. And there is once more a bottle of wine. We really appreciate our speakers and the time they take being here for us, for you. And if you still have questions, or if some questions pop up, I'm sure all the speakers are around, so feel free to talk to them, to talk to us, whatever you want to know. Yeah, just get in touch and also network, because this is one main part of the whole idea of 12 Hours Us. I really hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Goodbye and thank you so much.